88% of American businesses that implement artificial intelligence tools see absolutely zero measurable return on investment. It's a staggering figure from a 2025 McKinsey study that completely flips the narrative of the AI gold rush on its head. Most companies are essentially buying a high-speed sports car but never shifting it out of first gear. But there's a specific subset, about 12%, that's finding what experts call a 20% swing in their operational margins. This isn't about some world-changing breakthrough. It's about the difference between businesses that are paralyzed by generic tools and those that have identified the exact friction points in their daily workflows. We're looking at why most companies are failing to capture this value and how businesses like HVAC firms or legal practices are reclaiming 30% of their time in just a single month.
It's a classic case of the shiny object syndrome meeting operational reality. When you look at that 88% failure rate, you have to ask why. Most business owners are being sold on AI as a general-purpose magic wand. They think if they just buy a ChatGPT license or a generic automation suite, the efficiency will magically appear. But a study by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in late 2025 highlighted a massive education gap. 82% of very small firms believe AI simply isn't applicable to them. Meanwhile, the mid-sized companies that are winning aren't looking at AI as a brain to replace thinking. They're looking at it as connective tissue for their data. The 20% swing is essentially composed of two 10% halves, the 10% in overhead you're currently losing to repetitive manual work, and the 10% in upside you're missing because your team is too busy to follow up on leads or optimize schedules.
The overhead side of that equation seems like the most obvious starting point, but why is it so invisible to the people actually running these businesses? You mentioned a 10% loss to the way things have always been done. If an HVAC company is losing 3 hours a day to manual quoting, that's not just a minor annoyance, it's a structural leak. Why does it take a diagnostic session to see something that's literally eating a full employee's worth of time every week?
Because it's built into the fabric of the workday, we call it human middleware. It's the process of an employee taking data from a spreadsheet, putting it into a, quote, generator, and then manually emailing it to a client. Because it's a necessary step to get paid, it doesn't feel like a waste. It feels like the job. But when you apply targeted AI to that specific sequence, like that Dallas-based HVAC firm did, you see that 3-hour process drop to 20 minutes. They didn't replace a person, they replaced a bottleneck. And according to data from the Small Business Administration, the adoption gap between small and large firms is shrinking faster than any technology cycle in history, precisely because these operational wins are so concentrated in the mundane tasks enterprise consultants usually ignore.
If the gap is shrinking so fast, why is there such a massive mismatch between the consulting market and the average small business? I mean, we're seeing global AI consulting headed toward nearly $400 billion by 2026, yet most of that seems aimed at Fortune 500 problems. The local dental practice or logistics firm isn't looking for a multi-year digital transformation. They're looking to stop their paralegal from spending half their day on basic contract review.
Exactly. The scale mismatch is profound. Most high-level AI consulting is built on frameworks that assume you have a dedicated IT department and a data lake. But 5,000 mid-sized U.S. businesses are still running their core operations off basic spreadsheets. For them, a roadmap needs to be in plain English and actionable in 30 days, not 18 months. Take the legal practice example. They didn't need a custom LLM. They needed an AI-assisted review process that stayed within the Bar Association's compliance guardrails. By automating the busywork, their paralegals could double their caseload. That's not disruption in the Silicon Valley sense. It's just better plumbing. It's about finding the high-volume, low-judgment tasks that suck the oxygen out of a room.
You used the term low-judgment tasks. That feels like a critical distinction. A lot of the fear surrounding AI is about it replacing human judgment, but what you're describing is AI handling the logistics so humans can exercise judgment. In a medical or dental practice, for instance, the AI isn't the doctor. It's the thing making sure the patient follow-up actually happens and the insurance coding is verified before it hits a human's desk. Is that where the gaining 10% comes from? The upside of being more responsive?
Precisely. The gain half of the 20% swing is about the business you're currently leaving on the table. It's the lead that doesn't get a call back for 4 hours because the office manager is on the phone with an insurance provider. Salesforce data shows that 91% of small businesses using AI report revenue increases, and a big part of that is speed to lead. If you can use an AI agent to handle the initial intake and qualify a lead in 60 seconds, your conversion rate skyrockets. In industries like roofing or electrical contracting, where the first person to answer the phone often gets the job, that 10% gain is often conservative. You're effectively catching business that was previously invisible because your staff was underwater.
So why is the failure rate still 88%? If the ROI is this clear for those who do it right, what are the other 9 out of 10 businesses actually doing? Are they just buying tools and expecting them to work without any process change?
They're skipping the diagnostic phase. They're buying a solution for a problem they haven't actually mapped out. According to a recent report in the journal Nature on AI implementation, one of the biggest drivers of failure is a lack of workflow fidelity. If you don't understand exactly how a piece of paper moves through your office, you can't automate it. Most businesses try to blanket their company with AI. They give everyone a seat on a generic platform and say, "Go be productive." But without a prioritized list of opportunities ranked by impact and ease of implementation, people just use it to write better emails, which is a marginal gain at best. The 12% who succeed start with a high-impact pilot, one specific workflow, like automated invoicing or job scheduling, and they measure the result over 30 days before moving to the next thing.
That 30-day time frame seems aggressive compared to traditional business software rollouts. Is that because the tools have become more accessible, or is it that the bottlenecks are just that obvious once you look for them? Because most owners are terrified of a rollout that takes months and disrupts their already full schedule.
It's both. The tools are now low-code or no-code, meaning you don't need a computer science degree to link them. But the real reason is that once you identify a bottleneck, like a logistics firm manually tracking truck locations across 5 different spreadsheets, the fix is often quite structural. You're not rebuilding the business, you're just building a bridge between existing tools. A 90-minute diagnostic can usually uncover 3 or 4 of these swing points. If you can show an owner that a 5-day roadmap will lead to a pilot that saves 10 hours a week, the risk profile changes completely. It's no longer an abstract tech expense, it's a capacity play.
Let's talk about that risk profile. Most AI consultants ask for huge commitments up front. The Nova Reason approach, this "if you don't see value, you don't pay" guarantee, seems like a direct response to that 88% failure rate. It puts the pressure on the consultant to find the ROI rather than the business owner to find the time. But even with no financial risk, there's a time risk. How do you convince a business owner whose schedule is already too full that they should spend 90 minutes on a diagnostic?
By pointing out that the full schedule is the symptom of the very problem we're trying to solve. If you're too busy to find 20% of your time, you're essentially in a permanent state of diminishing returns. The industries that really power the U.S. economy, construction, medical practices, real estate, are all running on repeat customers and recurring workflows. These are exactly the places where friction hides. If a realtor is spending 12 hours a week on property description drafts and lead sorting, that's time they aren't spent closing deals. The diagnostic isn't a sales pitch, it's a forensic audit of where the clock is bleeding out. When you frame it as finding your hidden swing, it stops being about technology and starts being about reclaiming the business you actually wanted to run.
It strikes me that this isn't just about efficiency, it's about survival. If your competitor down the street finds their 20% swing first, they can afford to lower their prices, hire more people, or just respond faster. We're moving from a period where AI was an edge to a period where it's becoming table stakes. But there's a window right now where it's still a massive competitive advantage, especially for the businesses that avoid the generic enterprise traps.
That window is closing faster than people realize. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce reported that AI adoption among SMBs jumped from 14% to 55% in just 2 years. We're past the early adopter phase. We're in the early majority phase. The advantage doesn't come from having AI. It comes from having it integrated into your specific operations before it becomes a standard commodity. In industries like HVAC or plumbing, where trust and speed are everything, the first companies to use AI for predictive maintenance and instant quoting are going to fundamentally shift the local market expectations. Once a customer experiences a 10-minute turnaround on a complex quote, they aren't going to wait 48 hours for the other guy anymore.
It's about resetting the baseline. If you're an HVAC company and you can now handle a 30% higher volume without increasing headcount, your margin doesn't just go up, your ability to scale becomes exponential. But it all starts with that diagnostic. You have to be willing to look at the human middleware and admit that how we've always done it might be the biggest cost on your balance sheet. The data is clear. The ROI is there, but only for the 12% who are willing to move past the hype and look at the actual gears of their operation.
And it's important to remember that this isn't about replacing the human element. In all the successful cases, from the dental practices to the law firms, the humans are still there. They're just doing higher value work. They're talking to patients, they're arguing cases, they're solving complex mechanical issues. They're just no longer the ones copying and pasting data between systems. That's the true power of the 20% swing. It doesn't just give you your money back, it gives you your people back.
The gap between a 0 ROI and 30% time saved isn't about the size of the company or the complexity of the AI. It's about the precision of the application. For any business owner feeling the weight of a schedule that's always a little too full, that 20% swing is already there, sitting inside your operations right now. Finding it isn't a matter of guessing, but of deliberate operational analysis. If you're ready to see exactly where your business is leaving time and money on the table, you can book a diagnostic session at novariesen.ai to begin mapping your own roadmap. Share this episode with a colleague who's trying to navigate the noise of the current market.